welcome into the DNVR Rockies Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today, as I need in my life all the time, reunited, my fellow Kirkland brother, Kevin Henry. What's up, buddy?
Anytime I can Kirkland with you, man, it is all good. Good to be here, dude.
Well, we're going to be down in Nashville next week for the winter meeting, so I thought if we're going to preview it, I got to preview it with my right-hand man here, figure out what the Rockies are going to do, figure out what a couple other teams in the NL West are going to do. There's some trade targets out there in a big way. There's still all the top free agents. I mean, really, it's just what Aaron Nola has been taken off the board so far.
Yeah, you throw Nolan Gray, Sonny Gray out there. Not John Gray, of course. Not John Gray.
Not Josiah Gray.
No, exactly right. None of those Grays. But, no, I think that there's going to be a lot of action happening next week. I think it could be very interesting. Of course, everybody's teasing, could Ohtani be that guy that actually signs? And you know if that happens, the dam is going to break in such a big way.
And I know his camp really wanted to get this done before the winter meetings, and so it's hard to know because that's been the modus operandi, is like keep things quiet, on the hush-hush.
Very much so.
So I think that's been happening. You know, it's nice to set a goal and a target of the winter meetings, but I mean, look, you can only do so much.
I really wonder if it's something that if Ohtani were to sign, and I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but we know that there is a Japanese pitching contingent that is available. If Ohtani does sign, then does that influence where they're going to sign? And could you actually have a little Team Japan reunion? I know those St. Louis Cardinal fans are hoping for that under the Gateway Arch, but we'll see. This
morning, I constructed a scenario whereby the San Francisco Giants announced Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. That's what I'm going with right now. That's just something that I could see happening. It's huge, but after having lost the last couple off seasons on the big free agents, I could see them going in hard. And you get both of those guys together, that's going to change some things in the NL West.
Death, taxes, and the Giants missing out on free agents. I think that's going to be the trend again this season.
Oh, okay. You're going the opposite way.
I'm going to go the opposite way on you with the Giants. And I know we're going to talk NL West here in a few minutes, but I do think they get their hearts broken yet again, with all apologies to Tony Bennett.
Those giant-sized hearts. They're oversized.
Oversized.
That's the problem. The Bay Area oversized hearts.
They should go see about that, actually.
They should. If you don't want to go to the Bay Area to watch the Rockies, you can go to Mexico City next year.
Oh,
April, right? Those are home games for the Rockies.
It absolutely weird. Is. So at altitude, it should be. I mean, let's be honest. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I believe tickets are on sale or going on sale?
December 5th.
Yeah,
yep, they go on sale December 5th, and I think there's a bunch of packages. I clicked on something that started stuff out at like $1,800, but that's like an all-in. You get your room taken care of and stuff. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how much those tickets end up.
Very much so. Yeah, because I think that there will be definitely. I know there was a lot of interest last year. Again, Giants take here, but the Giants Padres. So we'll be curious how much Rockies Astros love gets on down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Garrett Hampson got some love from the Kansas City Royals. 1 year, $2 million deal. He'll be back with the Royals. Obviously, he came back last year with the Marlins for the first time. They come through every year. He's going to the American League, but it just so happens to line up that Kansas City will be back on July 5th through 7th. There will be fireworks on July 5th. It's a fireworks night, and now it's also because of Garrett Hampson.
Will we finally get the Garrett Hampson tribute? I mean, I was waiting for it. It never happened. I'm hoping this year we get it with the fireworks. Maybe there's just a little, while we're counting down, everybody's on the field, maybe the Garrett Hampson video starts playing.
Yeah, could be. There, one of the articles from MLB.com floated the idea of like who's a top trade candidate for each team, and it does seem like Brendan Rodgers' name has floated to the top of the bucket, if you will, as being that guy. You could say, well, maybe it could be Ryan McMahon as well, especially if you do something different there. And but they said Elias Díaz. And in the chat already, Daddy's surprise, he says, I don't think Elias gives great value, but you could pull something with another middling team. So, yes, we're talking about a guy who's got, I think it's like $6 million left on his deal. So not a huge value, but if you like that option a lot better than some of the free agents that are out there, then, yeah, he could be intriguing for another team.
Do you think that there's a world, knowing what you and I know, being in the clubhouse, hearing how Buddy glows about Diaz and what he means to this pitching team, do you really see that there's a scenario where Diaz could go?
No. No, definitely
I
not.
don't either. I mean, that's the thing. I think you could throw a whole bucket of prospects out there, and I still think they'd be very hesitant to get rid of him because I really do think his value is so much more than what the stats show. I mean, just talking to Buddy, knowing the pitching, and my God, we know that they're going to need help with pitching next year. And so I think to not have Diaz behind the plate would be a really bad thing.
We're going to dig a little deeper coming up here towards the end of the show in regards to some of the questions we might want to ask Bud Black and Bill Schmidt. And I would be curious to know, what were the conversations like surrounding Elias Díaz at this most recent trade deadline? And, knowing what we know and how those intangibles can be valued and how loyal the Rockies can be. I mean, if you look at the Mexico City graphics that they put out saying, hey, come get some tickets, you had Chris Bryant and you had Elias Díaz on the cover of that. So, doesn't mean you can't trade the guy, but that's certainly something. And he was also the MVP, of the All-Star game. And so that's going to look nice on a media guide and on programs. And the Rockies do think like that more so than, hey, if we're trying to get back into postseason contention, how can we get the most possible value out of all of our guys? And that's trading when stock is high rather than when we can't get anything out of that and from the PR perspective.
It's tough because you look back at last year and the positives that there were for the Rockies. Of course, we talked Nolan Jones ad nauseum. We talked Brendan Doyle. But what you just mentioned about whenever you and I were in Seattle and Elias Díaz won that All-Star Game MVP with one swing of the bat, that was a boost for the Rockies. It actually was because they were not going to talk about the Rockies if Diaz had not done that swing of the bat. I mean, let's be honest. So I really think that you've got to think about that in terms of he is a little bit of your star power right now, especially next year with Marquez and Sensatella. We know what their issues are with injuries. I think you've got to have Diaz, and I think there's also, and maybe a little bit of a stretch here, but I think there is that Latin component in the clubhouse that means a lot to the Rockies as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. Renee pointing out in the chat, we love Renee. Renee Decker.
Hey,
Come
Renee.
on, sending our love up to Wyoming.
Yeah, exactly.
What's up, Renee? Rockies have a glut of outfielders between the MLB team and the farm. Could one of those guys be included in a trade? And yes, absolutely. I think that's where the Rockies can't really worry about how things are going to look on the outside. Can't really worry about what fans are going to say about possibly trading a Benny Montgomery or Yankiel Fernandez or Jordan Beck. You don't necessarily want any of those guys traded, but if your outfielder already has Nolan Jones for the next 6 years and Brendan Doyle for the next 6 years, well, you've got room for one more outfielder. And we just mentioned 3 guys there. Sterling Thompson, can he stick at second base? Otherwise, he's an outfielder. Hunter Goodman, if he's not playing first base, he's an outfielder. So you have to do that. You have to get a little bit creative and, reducing some of that glut, which, again, that's a good problem to have, right, to have those talented players. But you may have to trade from some of that depth that you have in the minors in regards to your outfielders.
And, I remember being at Coors last year and talking about the glut of outfielders that there were and how do you move them all around, and obviously we know Charlie's coming back. That'll just be for one more season. But you do have to think about all those guys that you just mentioned. Do they really have a path to playing for the Rockies? And can they really make that impact? And I know one of the hottest guys out there whenever you talk about guys right now is Yankiel Fernandez.
Yeah.
It's such a buzz about him right now. So I go back to what you just said a minute ago about all the buzz. Do you sell high, all that stuff? I think it would hurt some Rockies fans to see him go, but at the same time, show me where, if you've got all those guys coming up, they all make an impact. I
mean, talking with Kenneth off air, I don't think we mentioned on our show, we're like, well, how could the Rockies get like a young pitcher like a Grayson Rodriguez from the Orioles? You go, we'd have to give up Nolan Jones. And you go, well, you can't do that. Why not? Why not? No one wants that to happen necessarily. No. But if you are going to improve your rotation going forward for the next couple of years, not just getting a nice Band-Aid like a Cal Quantrill where you say, all right, you've got him for 2024 and 2025. If you're going to really, patch this things up, you're going to have to be aggressive on the trade front. And as Renee points out, kind of trade from that outfield depth.
And the funny thing to me is that for so long, Rockies fans would go, we need to make trades. And then if you throw out a scenario like that, they're like, no, not those. No.
Yeah.
So it's going to be real interesting. But I don't know that any of those buttons are going to be pushed at winter meetings, but maybe Bill Schmidt throws us a curveball. It's possible.
A glut of outfielders, the story of the Colorado Rockies 2023-2024 offseason. That's the title.
Anytime you use glut, I mean, that's fantastic.
We've said glut of outfielders about 15 times. Take a shot if you hear it again. What's the status? We have to ask super producer Alyssa if we have an update on the documentary 2 days in March about the Rockies taking all of MLB by storm by going 2-0 against the San Diego Padres, undefeated for the first month, the entire first month of the season. 2 days in March. Documentary coming this offseason, I think, right?
And that's actually, if you talk to the Padres, that's when they knew it was going to be a bad season. Right there, just saying.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of like Padres content in this documentary about the Rockies 2 days in March. We got to fill a lot of time. Lot of time.
I'd click on it. That's a click.
Jurickson Profar wasn't even in the dugout yet. I think April 1st was the first day like he showed up in the dugout.
That's the guy you've got to talk to for this. You've got to talk to
perspective.
Real perspective.
But Pierce Johnson is a guy that crosses.
Pierce.
All right, we might be able to get at least 4 minutes out of this documentary now.
And so Pierce stumping for Shohei. Did you see that?
No.
Pierce was on MLB Network Radio stumping for Shohei Ohtani to come to Atlanta, which I'm just like, I love that. I absolutely do. Good for Pierce, man.
Why not? Yeah. I mean, Atlanta's still got one more big move, I think, left in them for sure. And look, if you've had a big move in your life, a negative one which you've been hurt, fear not, because the folks over at Backus and Schenker are going to help you out. 222-2222. They've got 30 lawyers, 100 folks on staff. They've got neighborhood offices in Fort Collins, Inglewood, Aurora, Denver. The cool part about it is you can call them and get a consultation absolutely for free. Doesn't cost you a dime. If they take your case, they will also work for free. They don't see any money until you do. Over $1 billion they've won their clients over the past 25 years. So give them a call, 222-2222, and find out if you've got a case for free, because Backus and Schenker wins. And if you're on a winning streak, you got to make sure you check out Circa Resorts and Casino, Vegas's first ever adults-only casino. They have a 78 million pixel screen that takes 10 people to operate to make sure when you're at poolside, when you're there with over 15,000 square feet of wet space, pool, hot tub, you can watch games from all over the world. It's pretty amazing. If you're doing something for Pac-10, Mountain West, you name it, use that code DNVR to get 20% off when you stay at Circa Resorts and Casino. And now, if you check out the Circa Sports Colorado app, it's amazing. You download it at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can only be made when physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. Now, a couple other pieces of business as far as the Rockies are concerned. I wrote a little article about 5 destinations for Shohei Ohtani that could have a positive impact on the Rockies. Basically being, okay, Ohtani, we know, will probably be a reliever if he pitches at all in 2024, but he'll be back in the rotation in 2025. Some teams, whether they're looking to cut some payroll, sounds strange if you're paying a guy $50 million to then try to cut some payroll, but some teams will need to do that. Yep. But they'll have to cut payroll. They might not have room in their rotation, so you might as well deal from depth. Going back to that glut of take a shot.
Wow, good for you.
Take a shot. You can deal from that depth, and the Rockies could benefit from that. You've got teams like Texas, teams like Toronto, Chicago, the Dodgers to a degree, more young guys than anything. If Ohtani goes to one of those teams, that could possibly benefit the Rockies and GM Bill Schmidt. If he can pick up the phone and say, look, you got a couple extra arms there. Let's see if we can work something out.
Yep, absolutely. And it's funny you say that because I read the article, by the way. And with Toronto, we know that there's that history between the Rockies and the Blue Jays. A few little deals have been done in the past.
It's true.
Did those phones light up again? Be very interesting to see.
Yeah, there definitely has been some connective tissue between those two clubs, even going beyond the Troy Tulowitzki trade. All right, so the other day, they announced the Comeback Player of the Year award. Liam Hendriks won it. Came back from stage 4, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's unfortunate he only got to, be a part of 5 games before he needed Tommy John surgery. But that's a great story for him to come back. And you go, oh yeah, there's zero doubt whatsoever. That's a comeback. Coming back from injury like that, it was good for him to see that.
Yeah, and the funny thing, if you look back at some of the comments from him whenever he came back, he's a pitcher who pitches angry.
Yeah.
And he said that whenever he was here at Coors. I remember him saying that. and for everybody to be welcoming him back and for it to be a feel-good story. I don't know that he necessarily knew how to handle that.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of an interesting thing for him to want to get angry on the mound and not be able to do it. But absolutely, such a great story for him to come back, and Chicago gets both sides of the coin whenever it comes to the comeback players.
That's true. Cody Bellinger winning it in the National League, and in fact, you could have Liam Hendricks winning it again in 2025, twice in 3 years potentially. All right, so I have a problem with Cody Bellinger winning the Comeback Player of the Year award.
Talk to me.
I have a big problem. And it's actually really not that big. It's also how like today they're gonna announce the winner of the Edgar Martinez Award for most outstanding DH. You're like, all right, that's a thing, but we've already given out a Silver Slugger Award to a DH, so it's kind of it's not necessary. But here's the thing: from the MLB.com article about the Comeback Player of the Year Award. Quote, the Comeback Player of the Year Award has been given annually by MLB since 2005. Actually, it's predated by the Sporting News. They've had one that they've been giving out. It's been given out to one player in each league who has reemerged on the field during the season. Reemerged, which means you were not there the previous year. Or you could interpret it to say you were there, but you were a shell of yourself.
You know, there are a glut of ways that could go, actually. I mean, that's very interesting.
So gluttonous. But here's the thing. If you actually go back and look at the players who've won it since 2005, a majority came back from an injury. Yeah. I mean, look at Daniel Bard, right? Maybe a mental injury, right? Mental issues, winning the award in 2020, having retired for 3 years there. He stepped away professionally after 2017, but hadn't played in the majors since 2013. So you go, okay, that's a reemergence. Greg Holland came back from Tommy John surgery to win the award in 2017. Andres Galarraga, obviously has done that. But Cody Bellinger played 144 games next year. How is this a comeback?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've got to spin it as it's a stat thing. It absolutely is. I mean, the one award that Bellinger should get is the Boris Award, because now he has laid the groundwork for the rest of those guys who are under Boris, who have struggled or been injured or whatever, the whole prove it deal. I think that's going to be your hot trend this year at the winter meetings, based on what Bellinger did last year. The Cubs took a chance on him. Now Bellinger's going to cash in. Rhys Hoskins is probably going to do the same thing. There's a lot of guys who are going to be on these one-year prove it deals just to see what really works.
Bellinger was worth 1.2 wins above replacement according to Baseball Reference last year, so he was okay. So I hear your argument and say, well, he came back, he reemerged in the latter sense of the word. He kind of disappeared in 2022, struggled. Ronald Acuna Jr. only played 119 games last year. He missed most of the first month with Atlanta with an ACL strain. He was a lot better than Cody Bellinger. Couldn't you make the case that he's more deserving of Comeback Player of the Year?
But is it a comeback based on what they did the previous season?
Well, he certainly wasn't as good. If you're looking at an increase, how much better the guy was over the last year. You had Michael Conforto missing the year. Again, wasn't great, you know what I mean? But did come back after missing all of 2022 with shoulder surgery. Fernando Tatis Jr., 0 games played last year. It's 4 PEDs, but you could also make that case.
See, that's where I was going to go. Because absolutely, had it been Tatis with a leg injury or something else, anything out of the PEDs, he walks away with that award.
Right.
Absolutely. So I think that there's a little bit of bias there. And I also think, going back to, you and I were driving down here today talking about the groupthink that was being bashed around a little bit by some of the guys at the New York Post when it comes to the BBWA awards. I think there's a groupthink going on right now with Cody Bellinger. I think he is so in the front of mind to so many people based on where his new contract's going to go and everything else that I think it's almost just, he should win it, of course.
Foregone conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. No, yeah, there's definitely something to that. No, I think that makes a ton of sense in a major way. We had a couple signings go down also too here in MLB. Mets and Reds both signed 2 guys. I don't know how much they move the needle, but the Mets get Luis Severino, 1 year, $13 million. So he'll stay in New York, but he'll go with the Mets. Joey Wendell, another one of those like utility guys, certainly doesn't have the same speed that Garrett Hampson has. He signs a 1 year, $2 million deal. And then the Cincinnati Reds making things interesting. Really good setup man, and Emilio Pagan, 2 years, $16 million. Kind of paying like a Rockies tax where, hey, I'll come to Cincinnati. Kind of a bandbox, kind of a ballpark where I'm going to get slapped around a little bit. But if you're going to pay me for it, I'll do that. And then Nick Martinez to Cincinnati. That got done earlier today. 2 years, $26 million. Reds being aggressive.
I'm a big Nick Martinez guy. I think that's going to be a really good signing for them. What he did for the Padres last year would be you want him to eat innings, you want him to open, you want him to close, whatever. He was a guy that I really had on the radar as could he end up here? I mean, in a perfect world. But it doesn't surprise me that Cincinnati grabbed him early.
Yeah, they're doing a nice job of rebounding last year. 2 games over 500 last year at 82 and 80. And now they're adding those pieces with that young core there. So, and again, they're not splashy signings by any means, but you go, this is a smaller investment where they could get a lot out of it and help them until, maybe they do make a bigger splash in the next offseason.
Well, this is going to be a Reds team that's completely different because the Joey Votto era is likely ended. We know that. They're also not paying the Mike Moustakas contract. I believe that has finally gone off. So there's some money to play with they haven't had in years past. That good for them for spending it.
Hey, if you've got some money to play around with, well, don't spend all of it. Get a little savings when you use code DNVR. As always, when you go to Kind Love, official partner of DNVR, support that local brand. They're one of the first dispensaries right here in Colorado, established back in 2010, known for cultivating some of the highest quality cannabis in this state. They've got their turbo joints and Kind Love flower that's sold in more than 100 stores around the state. You can actually visit one of the stores in Cherry Creek or North Denver. You mention DNVR, you receive the DNVR exclusive discount of 25% off all Kind Love flower, pre-rolls, and their exclusive turbo joint line. Visit the website at kindlove.com for their full extensive menu and online ordering. And yeah, code DNVR does work for deliveries as well. Some news also breaking this morning about Jackson Chourio, a 19-year-old outfielder with the Milwaukee Brewers. I forget what the final numbers were, but dude has yet to make his major league debut. Was really good at AA, 22 homers, 89 RBI, 44 stolen bases. He did debut, played a little bit with AAA at the end of the year, basically looking like a Ronald Acuna Jr. 2.0, which he was actually the last guy to have 20 home runs and 40 stolen bases in the minors. And he's going to be signed to an 8-year, $80 million deal that I'm sure also has a few more club options to go beyond that to keep his price down really, really low in what would be some of his free agent years.
The Acuna comp is really interesting because I think what's going on here is what the Braves have been doing. They sign a lot of their guys early on. Now, granted, this is really early on, but you get a lot of the guys who have signed extensions even before they've really proven themselves in MLB. Hey, good for them. And if this pays off for the Brewers, that's something that, there's been some discussion about Milwaukee. Are they staying? What's going to happen with American Family Field? All that stuff. So something actually positive for the Brewers. I hear their manager left. I'm not sure if you heard that. So they need something positive up there. So good for them. And
they're trading Corbin Burns more than likely in his final year before he hits free agency. Also seeing in the chat, will the Reds trade Jonathan India?
Yes.
They've got a ton of middle infielders already. I mean, Noel Marte might be their second baseman of the future for a guy that feels like he's still a part of their future. It was only 2 years ago he won the Rookie of the Year award.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it earlier, Brendan Rodgers as a potential trade guy. You got Rodgers and India both out there maybe being floated. Are they in competition for teams, that might need that guy out there, that middle infielder?
That's bad news when you put it that way because that makes it a little bit harder for maybe the Rockies to get back, what they would like in a trade deal. Teams go, actually, I can go over and get Jonathan India cheaper, more years of club control too, right? Because Rodgers only has 2 more years. He's already in the arbitration process. So, that is an unfortunate wrinkle that you kind of point out there.
And I think that there's something, obviously the Rodgers trade scenarios have been out there quite a bit, but, and our friend Thomas Harding from MLB makes that really the focal point of his newsletter recently. I wonder if there's some smoke kind of building out there that Thomas is picking up on whenever it comes to that, too.
That would have been a good transition for Kind Love talking about
that would have been actually.
Darn it. And what's interesting is you go, why would a guy sign a deal like that? And there are some people, people enjoy living on the extremes. And you say, well, why would he sign that? And other people say like, oh yeah, that's a brilliant deal to take. 8 years, $80 million when you're 19, and you've yet to even make your major league debut. It's only happened 5 other times where a team has come to an agreement with a player, and all of them came with team options because, sure, you're getting guaranteed money. So now you've got that cost assurance. But keep in mind, look at a guy like Juan Soto, who we'll talk about here in a second. Yeah. He's set to make about $33 million in arbitration this year. So by the time he reaches free agency, he'll have made $82 million in arbitration. So if you go through that route, you get to become a free agent at age 20. Juan Soto will be. Jackson Chourio, possibly, that same timeline for him. And then after that, I mean, we're talking $500 million. But if you take the money early now, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot in the future. So it can be a catch-22.
It can, but you're also eliminating all the stress, everything else that goes on with arbitration. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of the young players. If they know where they're playing and all they do is focus on baseball, not the business side of it, I think that's there's a lot to be said for that.
Very true. All right, let's get into the winter meetings chat there in Nashville this year. I have never been to Nashville. Kev,
I'm so
what
excited
can you tell me
about
about Nashville? Like, I don't know anything about it as a city. I have a feeling Alyssa may know a couple things or two. She can go ahead and chime in, but tell me what you know.
Just be prepared on social media to see some shots of Patrick Lyons doing boot shopping, because there will be some boot shopping happen. I'm just telling you. We will make sure that you get some boots, or at least try on some boots while we're there.
I've never been into a boutique before to know what it's like. Is that what they're called?
Well, there's a glut of them on Broadway, so we'll enjoy that.
Good.
Actually, yes.
Alyssa, have you been to Nashville before?
Yeah, I've been once. It was fun. It's like the Las Vegas of country music.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. It's absolutely right.
I heard it's just a city of bachorette parties also is kind of the thing.
That's why I was there.
There you go. I mean,
yeah, there will definitely, we'll have some fun. I guarantee you that.
I'm wondering if a couple, Tennessee natives are going to drop by. Mookie Betts, David Price. Is he retired? I don't know. Todd Helton. How about Todd Helton?
How about
you think
Todd
maybe
Helton?
He's going to swing through and just
not?
hang out?
Knoxville, Nashville, they both got Ville in them. Come on. It's not that hard.
It's true.
And we know, there's a manager that lives in Nashville in the offseason. Did you know this?
There's a manager who lives. When you tell me, I'll probably know, but I don't. I know it's not Craig Counsell.
How about this?
It's not Bud Black or Dave Roberts.
He got lured back into a job last year by a certain team that turned out to be a very good decision for them.
Oh, is Bruce Bochy?
Bruce Bochy. He's a Nashville guy, absolutely.
I thought he commuted in from France.
It's very French, sir, Nashville. You'll find this. You'll be like, am I in Paris? No, it's Nashville.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Paris of the South, Nashville.
That's what they call it. Absolutely.
Maybe. Veterans Committee will be getting together this weekend, and we find out, will the Rockies have their second member of the Baseball Hall of Fame? Jim Leland, yes, their manager for 1 year in 1999. Not as catastrophic as other seasons, but for him, Jim Leland was not happy. You have Lou Piniella, Davey Johnson, Cito Gaston. Four managers who've all won a World Series. Cito Gaston, the only one that has never won 1,000 games, but he's also the only one that has 2 World Series to show for it. You got executives Hank Peters, Bill White. Maybe Joe West is hanging out.
Cowboy Joe may be there. I mean, he fits the Nashville.
We may have to go to a karaoke bar because Joe West, he enjoys some singing. He has an album out. You know that?
Oh, that's right.
He's got like a country album out. So I mean, he might be doing that, making the rounds.
We can go karaoke after boot shopping if you want. Absolutely.
I wonder. Wow, this thing is really on the schedule, I guess. Boot shop. Oh,
see,
man.
We'll talk.
Are they comfortable?
Sure they are. If you get the right ones, that's the trick. Talking to an Oklahoma boy here. Come on.
All right. Well, we're going to have most of the day on Sunday to figure that out.
Like you, I'm one of those foreigners that covers the Rockies instead of being a Colorado native. So, sorry.
There's not many of those around.
I hear.
We got, so there'll be plenty about the trade market business. I'm actually curious, are we going to get a second Scott Boras press conference? Because usually he does that at the winter meetings. This time he did it at the GM meetings.
Oh, he knows that's a big thing for all of us to sit around and watch him do his metaphors. Absolutely. The over-under of the metaphors used in the Boras press conference, that's where we need the Vegas odds right there.
Yeah, I think it'll happen. He'll get himself set up. I mean, does he have still more left in the chamber? That's the thing. I feel like he might have used his best material.
I think he's, considering the GM meetings ended quickly after that because of illness, maybe he's, he got time to write some new comedy. It's possible.
Could be. All right, let's talk about the Rockies. Let's talk about some future business for the Rockies. Will they make a move in the Rule 5 draft? They've got the 3rd overall pick. They made a move last year and then promptly traded the guy to the Rays. How it works is the Rays basically tell the Rockies, if you draft this guy, we'll give you some cash considerations. And the Rockies go, yeah, we don't really utilize our Rule 5 picks. So, sure, we'll draft your guy and make a couple bucks off of it. I don't know. I mean, they haven't had a pick this high in quite some time, if ever, this high in the Rule 5 draft. So, I don't know if they're going to do anything. Probably not. Probably not.
So I'll play devil's advocate with you. I think that we have seen Bill Schmidt be more aggressive, and I think that it's very possible with, as you said, this high of a pick. Maybe there's somebody out there that could make a difference. I think it's possible. I do.
All right. Definitely more so than years past.
For sure.
I would agree with that.
For sure.
And then, do they win the draft lottery? Do they get the first overall pick in the 2024 MLB draft? They've got 18.3%, which is tied for the highest with the Royals and the A's. Will we find that out? Raul Ibanez or whoever's pulling the name out of the envelope. Will the Rockies get the first overall pick?
You know what? We hit lightning in a bottle with Elias Díaz in Seattle. Maybe we'll hit it in Nashville as well. It's very possible, man.
Wow.
I think one of those two will happen. How about that?
Oh, okay.
If I were a wagering man, I'd say one of those two will happen.
I like that. Okay.
How about you?
I'll go with one of those two. I don't think they're going to get the first overall pick.
Okay.
I don't think that. I don't know. Maybe that's a little naive of me to think that these leagues don't orchestrate the first pick. It's also a little bit different. I know. It's also a little bit different in baseball, where it's like, yeah, we want this guy to be with you in 5 years from now. It's a little different. There's also not a huge name that's out there, so maybe in a way you go, you know what? Let's get the Rockies have their first overall pick now, because then when Matt Holliday's next kid becomes the first overall pick, we can put him in a better market.
I didn't know you were going conspiracy on us here. I
might have
that,
to.
actually.
I may have to.
Well, and that they're not going to give it to Oakland after the credit year Oakland's had overall. They're certainly not going to go, well,
yeah,
here, you can have this.
They dropped from being a top 3 pick to be having the 6th overall pick last year. So were they punished? Was that bad luck? There's like a 1% chance the Rockies could have the 9th pick again. That means everything goes wrong. That means both the A's and the Royals aren't in the top 3, and 6 other teams with way worse odds jump over the Rockies.
That's your doomsday scenario. No, there's no way for that. But
it can't happen.
Anything can happen.
In a lottery.
Is it impossible? No. Is it improbable? Yes. There you go.
Some questions for Bill Schmidt and Bud Black that we're going to have to ask. I tell you what, the question I don't have when it comes to getting together with friends and family is, what kind of bourbon are we drinking? It's obviously going to be Breckenridge Distillery, the official bourbon of the surging Denver Broncos. Breckenridge Distillery, widely known for their blended bourbon whiskey, high rye mash American-style whiskey. You don't have to go into the mountains in Breckenridge. Their facility is amazing. You should check it out if you do get a chance. But look, they've got it in all 50 states, après, anywhere. Visit a local retailer. Go to BreckenridgeDistillery.com to find out how you can get home delivery of the award-winning Breckenridge spirits. So, obviously, we're gonna talk with Buddy and Bill Schmidt down there in Nashville, getting some injury updates on some of those pitchers, and particularly like a Ryan Rollison, right? Like where is he at? Where is Zach Veen in the rehab process? It was nice to see him back on the field down in the Puerto Rican Winter League. Got a base hit, stolen base, walk, so that's obviously promising. I'm curious about the injured guys.
I am too, absolutely. And I'm curious what the plan is for the injured guys. And I'm thinking about the rotation primarily for next year. Obviously there's still some work that's got to be done. Is Chase Anderson going to be a piece of that? Which guys do we see last year could be coming back? They've made some small moves so far this year, but there's still a lot of questions about who's actually going to take the ball every 5th day.
It's got to be busier than last year. I've been saying this a lot, just because nothing happened last offseason until you got to March, and they signed those free agents, and they acquired Nolan Jones, but he wasn't Nolan Jones. He was Guardians prospect.
Absolutely.
That's it.
I think you've got to bring in somebody with a little more proof to them this year.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big questions is who's going to be that big, moment. I know Cal Quantrill's already part of that, but still, there's got to be something else.
One of the things I have in my little dossier of questions that I want to ask, and Renee, who's here, also followed up. What's the international scouting situation like for the Rockies? So, in their media guide, they only have Latin American scouts. They have some international cross-checkers, but I think they're working exclusively with the scouts that are in Venezuela, Dominican Republic, as well as Colombia. But they, to my knowledge, don't have any scouts in the Far East. They don't have anyone in Japan or South Korea looking to kind of be in on that market. Because, look, there's a couple guys that aren't the Shohei Ohtani, the Yamamoto, even the Shoto Iminagas. Like, there are some relief guys that are coming over, and there's more and more. What about Merrill Kelly's market when he was coming over? If you don't have eyes on him there, it's hard to make a move. There are other guys that continue to come back after playing over in the KBO and NPB, and those players are you don't have a good grasp on whether if they did make those proper adjustments if you don't have scouts over there. So I'd be curious kind of what the Rockies' view is on scouting over in Asia.
That's a good one. I like that a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah, does Sean Bouchard get another shot at starting again? I want to say that it came out of an article that you wrote in talking with Bill Schmidt.
That still stuns me to this day.
That Bouchard was going to be that guy that they were really going to lean on before, unfortunately, the bicep injury.
Yeah, Sean Bouchard in that multiverse was going to be your starting left fielder. I mean, and you just wonder what would have happened if, seriously.
So is he going to get that opportunity now that he's healthy?
I think they believe in Sean Bouchard. I absolutely do. So I think he's going to be given every benefit of the doubt to show that he can do something. Yeah.
What are the conversations surrounding Elias Díaz like? Of course, we'll talk about that.
Brent Suter. I want to know
coming back?
I want to know about Brent Suter. What is the plan? Because Suter told us last day of the season he wanted to come back to Colorado. He really liked it here, liked the culture. And I know the guys in the clubhouse loved having him. And I think he was a valuable piece for their bullpen last year. Will he come back?
Yeah, they picked up Jalen Beeks, obviously, and you go, all right, does that block it? I mean, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't read the entire MLB rulebook. You are allowed to have more than one left-handed reliever in your bullpen.
I believe. Let me check that.
Look it up.
Okay,
so, hey, you could have Beeks and you could have Suter. Like, okay, that works out. Easy. Big offseason, you say, for the Rockies, huh? When I asked Bud Black, is Charlie going to be the leadoff hitter going into this year? Again, things can change. Or is someone like Ezekiel Tovar, who he actually had the second most, I believe, opportunities in leadoff after Charlie and Jerks and Profar. Is Tovar going to be that guy this year?
I could see Tovar being that guy this year. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you just a crazy thought here?
Do
that's
it.
one I've thought about. Would Nolan Jones ever slot in as that leadoff guy?
Ooh, I like that.
Buddy loves the power at the top. He's always loved Chuck up there. He's mentioned that from time to time. And I'm always wondering, knowing the stolen base threat, everything else.
I hope they don't do that. I'll say that.
I hope not either, but.
I mean, imagine a world in which, so Charlie Blackmon is, I think there's definitely obviously some similarities if you look on paper with the skill set, other than the great arm that Nolan Jones has, between Joe and Charlie Blackmon. But I think Charlie took a while for him to kind of figure out some things, so it was a slow progression. So when he was batting leadoff in his early days, it wasn't the Charlie that we knew him to be. Whereas Nolan has kind of already gotten there. So you say, all right, Nolan Jones, he kind of can be Charlie Blackmon 2.0, but who's hitting behind him in the rest of the lineup? Charlie, when he was hitting leadoff, you had those thumpers behind him. I don't think you necessarily want to kind of re-engineer it in that way. You say, no, let's just have Nolan Jones batting third or second on some days, depending on the matchup. Get him even more at bats. So
see, that's where I'm going with that. Do you get him more at bats, knowing, right now the lineup, it's got some questions to it as well. And again, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if that's ever crossed the mind. And I'm sure Bud will say, we think of everything.
And if Doyle's hitting ninth, you go Doyle and then Nolan Jones, how much does that want to play up a little bit? And you go, okay, maybe there's something there. There could be. I want to know what Buddy's thoughts are on the AA starters coming into 2024, because we know you got to have that depth. And, while we do talk about those guys during the course of the season, we're talking about the guys in the big league roster. We're talking a little bit about the guys in AAA, could they fill in and whatnot. And then AA is like, they're there, and Buddy gets the updates. He does read those reports. But everyone's really focused on the guys on the big league roster, and so there's shorter conversations, or they're like off the record kind of conversations. They're kind of away from those scrums. So I'm curious, what Buddy thinks about the Case Williams, the Joe Rocks, and the Carson Palmquist. If those guys are going to get an invitation to spring camp. Case Williams got it last year. I do expect Joe Rock and Palmquist to get those this year. But are they guys that we could be hearing from early in the season versus versus, a little bit later when there's some injuries.
Oh, I think it's very possible. Seeing the way that things are setting up right now, I think it's absolutely possible the Rockies may get a shall we say, glut of young pitchers to come up earlier in the season than would in years past.
Is Chris Bryant truly first base DH only? Or is there some chance you could see him a little bit in right field and allows you to play Elias Montero a little bit?
For all the talk that the Rockies have always had about versatility, it feels like there's so many guys that are already locked into a position heading into this year. I mean, Chuck's probably going to be your DH, play right fielder every once in a while. Like you said, Bryant at first. You can pretty much go down the order and say, here's where the guys are going to be.
Yeah.
So, but that's going to be a good question to ask.
It's a paradox, for sure. The purple paradox of the Rockies. Who's the closer? Who's the closer? Is it Daniel Bard going to reprise his role with a clean slate? Are you giving the ball back to Justin Lawrence, who had it for a majority of the season, or the guy who pretty much ended the season, Tyler Kinley? You got a nice little battle. Fun battle. But you've got a battle for the closer spot in 2024.
And Kinley and Bard have both said there's a very friendly but serious rivalry when it comes to who gets the ball late in the game. And they both want it. Now, I think if Kinley can actually be healthy all year, Bard can be healthy all year, that's going to be a very interesting thing. But you're absolutely right. Lawrence could be the guy, too.
Let's take a look around the NL West and figure out, are the Dodgers going to spend big? That's another one of those big questions at the winter meetings. Okay. Yeah. All right, done. Next. Moving on. They're showing interest in Seth Lugo, so that's like an affordable option there for them. They did just sign Nelson Cruz. Wait for it. As an advisor, he'll work in Latin America, so he's not actually playing. But, how big do they spend? It seems like it's this foregone conclusion that Ohtani's going to sign with the Dodgers. But it seems like in MLB, the last 5+ years, every time there's a guy that is going to a place, they don't go there.
Right. I agree. And everybody's saying, Ohtani to the Dodgers is a foregone conclusion. I think it's the likely destination. But I also think the Dodgers have to do more than just Ohtani.
That's true, too.
Because I will tell you, as many questions as the Rockies have about their pitching, you could say the same thing right now about the Dodgers heading into next year, too. So I think that they've got to make some moves, and I think that Ohtani cannot be the only move, and then they just sit back and go, well, we're going to win the West. They may, but they won't go deep in the postseason again.
If I see Dodgers fans down in Nashville, this could go to just anybody in media who's down at the winter meetings. Just say, can you name 5 starting pitchers for the Los Angeles Dodgers right now? Like name any Tampa Bay Devil Ray.
Yeah.
I said Devil Ray there. Oops. Let's just edit that out. Let's go again from the top. 3, 2, 1. Can you name a Tampa Bay Ray? Can you name a starter? Because you basically have Walker Buehler as your number one, and you go, hey, that's great. Hold on. He just is coming back from Tommy John surgery. Right. Julio Urias is a free agent and on administrative leave. Yep. Clayton Kershaw just had, shoulder surgery, so he's not even on the roster right now. Maybe he comes back late in the year. And then you've got 3 guys who made their debut, right? Emmett Sheehan, Bobby Miller, who was fantastic as a rookie, probably deserved a little Rookie of the Year notoriety somewhere on a down ballot. Mm-hmm. Ryan Pepio came back from last year. You had Gavin Stone also debuted. You've got these guys, you go, all right, yeah, they're ready to take a step up, but you have an entire rotation of guys to step up. You need to sign you need to bring in at least
Absolutely.
2 starting pitchers.
Absolutely, you do. And you remember last year they brought in Syndergaard. Remember that? Now it was an epic failure.
Yeah.
But still, they knew that they needed some kind of veteran in there to kind of give them a little bit of cushion for these young guys to learn. I still think they're going to need somebody like that to come in.
Dustin May, we got to wait and see what happens with him coming back with another injury. Tony Gonsolin, Tommy John. So oh yeah, I know these names, but they're not all available. They're not Dodgers anymore. Not. So they got to figure that out. Will Arizona make some bigger moves to support the young roster? They did acquire Eugenio Suarez to play third base. So that's a decent investment right there, $11+ million. Maybe they add a starter.
Maybe.
Starting pitcher?
I am curious how content they will be saying, well, this group got us there last year, and like you said, we've already made the big splash with Suarez. Is that enough? Is that our one and done? I'll be real curious to see if Arizona just sits back and says, nope, we got our core guys. They did it last year. They do it again next year.
And they're they have them around for so long that it's hey, next off season, even though you guys you came in a little bit earlier than we were expecting. next offseason will maybe make some bigger splashes. And so they do have that luxury to do that. San Francisco going to add a superstar. They need to add at least 2 more starters into the rotation. Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto to the San Francisco Giants. Breaking predictions right here.
That's where you're going?
That's my prediction. Wow. I think they're going to do that.
Wow, okay.
And if they don't, how will those names be misspelled, right? We had the Carlos Correa to the Giants. Oh, wait, that didn't happen. We had the Arson Judge. What gets misspelled this go round? What about the Padres, too? Are they going to trade Juan Soto? It seems like they have to.
That's what I keep hearing, is that they have to. I am still of the belief that, and you know, when I was here last time, Peter Seidler just passed away. Yeah. And there is such a belief there that now that he has passed, that his vision remains intact for them to win. And I don't see how you could look Padres fans in the face and say, we're going to win a World Series, but you've traded off Juan Soto. I think I just am of the belief that they are going to keep Juan Soto at least till the trade deadline.
Wow.
That's my belief. It probably, who knows?
No. That I could see that, because you talk about vision and you go, well, I think we all know what that word means, but I think there's different interpretations. Like, Dick Monfort, I think, gets criticized a little bit of like, oh, he doesn't want to win a World Series, and you go, of course he would want to, and certainly this is no defense. I'm not doing that Homer thing that some people might do and say, no, he wants to win. Like, yeah, everybody wants to win. Like, but are you willing to do what it takes to win that, or do you only want to win it doing what you want to do? Your vision of that. So the vision of, hey, keeping that alive and say, hey, we still want to win a World Series for Peter Seidler in his memory, but what are you going to take to get there? Because Seidler's path was one direction. The new operating owners might have a different path, and that's the same argument with Dick Monfort, where you go, all right, his path is the same path that they've been doing for a very long time, and it's not working. So does Dick Monfort want to win a World Series? Because the path that gets them there isn't necessarily the one that's his vision right now.
The vision of Chris Bryant being your big battleship, as we've heard, and so many other things. Bryant's at a different stage of his career than Juan Soto is. And knowing what you gave up for Juan Soto in that deal with the Nationals, and yes, you got Josh Bell as well. But I'm going to tell you right now, what they will get back is going to be minuscule compared to what they gave up. And that is a big sticking point in San Diego right now.
And if you trade him now, the team does get him for an extra 2.5, 3 months. Sure. There's that. You also have, in theory, 29 teams going after Juan Soto versus at the trade deadline when there's, a lot less. So they've got to figure that out too.
But Scott Boras has already said that he's going to ask for a mega extension. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that is coming out right now, and maybe you've read this, is that if you get Juan Soto, it's really going to be a 1-year rental. He's not going to sign an extension this year. He's going to test the free agent market. So how many teams are really investing that much to spend on him? And if you know you've only got a 1-year rental, why not hold him till the trade deadline and say, okay, maybe a team that's really knowing they're going for it 3 months, maybe they spend a little more. It's a roll of the dice. It is.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a guy you go, oh, the Yankees are going to end up getting him. Like, that's like the obvious connection. And you go, all right, so we know that that's definitely not going to happen, right? Since these things don't end up working out that way. A couple quick little news and notes before we get out of here. Ken Rosenthal writing earlier today that the market for Edward Cabrera and Trevor Rogers for the Marlins is heating up, and we know that there was some conversation last offseason for Brendan Rodgers for Edward Cabrera. Cabrera, didn't really help his value out that much in 2023. We know Rodgers didn't, not his fault necessarily, right, with the injury. So maybe that deal still kind of lines up a little bit, despite the fact that you're not trading Rodgers at the height of his value as you would have last offseason.
But you also had a change in management now with the Marlins. Do they still have that same vision? I think that's another thing to keep an eye on too.
It was nice to see the Pirates hiring Sarah Gillis as their assistant general manager. Has been working with the Astros as a director of research and development. Another article for The Athletic talking about some like up and comers, like that are future managers and coaches. There were no Rockies mentioned there. It doesn't mean that there aren't great people. We know Thad Levine, is a guy who's running things over over in Minnesota came out of the Rockies organization. Yep. Brittany Habe's doing wonderful things in the analytics department. She's somebody that I see going on to bigger and better things over the course of her career. We all think Warren Schaefer's going to be a future manager. That seems like a definite thing that's going to happen. So there are plenty of good people inside the Rockies organization.
Absolutely. And I think the one you just hit on right there, I think Schaefer is somebody that down the road, absolutely that's going to happen.
Yeah. Very next manager of the Rockies, perhaps?
It's possible. I think just like Joe Espada was kind of that manager in waiting with the Astros.
Yeah.
And nobody ever really talked about it, but you knew it. I think it could be, honestly, because Bud is on a year-to-year deal. Who knows? Or
Charlie Blackmon, manager, DH. No. Could you see Charlie as a manager? I don't know if he has enough patience.
No, Charlie would have to talk to us every day.
That's true. Not that he's impatient, but it's just he doesn't suffer fools. And media, players, we're all kind of fools in our own different ways. So.
But Schaefer can talk to us every day.
Oh, Shafe's great.
He'd love to do that. He does already. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he likes to pepper us with trivia questions and different things. Big Sporkle guy, Warren Schaefer. Fun fact: big Sporkle guy. Pepper. Is he in the chess group? I know like C.J. Cron, Ryan McMahon. They're all big into playing chess. I want to say Schaefer got into that a little bit.
And I'm not sure, now that you mention it, what happened to the chess thing after Crony left?
Did he took the chessboard with him?
He might have. He took his board and went home.
That's part of the cash considerations that the Angels acquired and a chessboard. Like, we're not going to put it in the press release. That's silly. No, we want to know. We do want to know. We also want to know here in the chat, too. Will there be a Bud Black contract extension announced at the winter meetings? I don't know.
I don't know. Renee, I love the thought, but I just don't know how long term. I think Bud would keep doing this forever.
Yeah.
But I do think there's going to come a time when they're going to have to say, which direction are we going to go?
And we're probably getting closer to that.
I think we are.
Unfortunately.
And love Buddy. Absolutely. But I think at some point, if you really want to change, you're going to have a whole new set of young guys coming up. And I think that there will come a time when those young guys are going to need a little different culture maybe than there is there now.
New voice leading, yeah. I had some thought at the beginning of the year that Buddy would be gone at some point during the season. I kind of thought that maybe he'd be made a scapegoat. I think everyone knows, it's not his fault that the team is going to lose 100-plus games.
Absolutely not.
Did lose 103 games. He didn't put the roster together. He doesn't work any of the physical therapy stuff and has anything to do with these guys getting hurt. But at the same time, you go, all right, we've got this young group of guys coming up in the minors. Let's maybe get a new voice, change some things in the clubhouse. We are really bad this year. Like, all of those things, I think, puts a manager on a hot seat, and I think you could see that. It's one of the reasons why I don't know that we'll get that 1-year extension for Buddy.
Yeah, and I do think there's a lot of respect for Bud down there, and from all of us, from internally as well. And I don't know that he would ever be, even if they went through another 100-loss season this year, I don't think that the axe would fall on Buddy during the season. I think that could be the whole, okay, it's time to flip the switch a little bit.
Yeah, and you also have to consider the fact that there are going to be fans out there that go, wait a minute, I get it. He lost his job. You've got these young guys coming up. 2025 is maybe when they become a little bit more relevant. Yeah. So let's start a clean slate. But you're doing it after potentially back-to-back 100-loss seasons. You're doing Buddy dirty here a little bit. Like there's going to be that aspect. There's no clean way to go about the service of what Bud Black has been able to do for this franchise. Helping these young guys find their way in the majors more recently, and then leading them to consecutive postseason appearances. And you got to forget, he did it immediately. It was like, hey, this team is pretty decent in 2016. We need a new manager. I thought Ron Renicky was going to be the guy because Bud Black was too perfect for the job going into 2017. I was like, there's no way the Rockies get the guy that they should get. And they got him. Yeah. And Buddy delivered immediately. And so plenty of fans out there don't forget that, and they don't want to see Buddy done dirty and have him, be forced out at such a low time for the franchise.
I agree. I think if there's one guy that you can point to on the roster outside of Chuck, okay, let's take Chuck out of the equation, but one guy who's beloved by a lot of the fans out there, it's Buddy. And so I think that, and I know he gets the crud thrown at him for the pitching decisions and everything else. He's the same manager that led him to those postseason appearances. So I do think that he'll have the benefit of the doubt. But is this his last season? It's a good question.
We'll see. We'll have it covered at the winter meetings. You'll be doing it at KGH23.
Yes, sir. Be at KGH23. We'll do some writing for FanSided, I'm sure, or whatever else comes along, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, I'll be writing all about it at the DNVR.com, at DNVR_Rockies, at Patrick D. Lyons on Twitter. I'm also on TikTok. I'm TikToking these days about all things going on in baseball news. Nothing too exciting. I'm not dancing yet. Eventually, if I have to get the views up just a little bit. But yeah, just baseball news over on TikTok at PDO Gimmicks is the name. Appreciate you giving us this momentum, but there's a phrase.
There's only so much I can do because...
Yes, that momentum is only as good as your next show. It's going to be a good one. Susie, tomorrow, Friday, right here on the DNVR Sports Channel, live on YouTube.